Hello and welcome to another episode of Sneaking Into Movies. I'm your host, Chris, with my co-host as always, Jason. Jason, how are we doing today?
Living the dream.
Jason is living the dream today. Today, we're going to be reviewing 2024's Fly Me to the Moon, an adult comedy-ish, drama-ish, kind of a blend there. Before we begin, Jason, we must start out the podcast properly. Rest in peace, Big Homie Quan. Passed away this afternoon.
I didn't
Jason,
know
you
that.
got to stay up on the news. Mr. Quan, pronounced dead in his mid-30s. Just saw it.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, there we go, Jason. Not sure what this quite had to do with the movies, but it just came into my feed and figured you'd kind of seen that already here. Okay, first part of this movie, Jason. Why did you suggest this movie? I actually suggested this movie, so we'll come back to that. Would you recommend this movie? That's our first question. Ooh, that's complicated. No, you would not recommend it. Okay.
I wouldn't. I have a caveat. One caveat.
Okay. What is it?
If you love everything about space, okay.
All right.
Okay.
I'm pro space. Okay, I'm going to say this because I am like the movie perplexed me. Is it a Apple TV seems to have made so much money that they are intent to burn it on fire in their film production line of their business? It is insane to me what Apple is doing with movies in their TV show. They might stop. I think they recently came out and said, okay, we can't keep doing this. We have like shareholders here. They're investing, they're pouring a disgusting amount of money into their TV shows. What's the new one where it's like they're inside the Severance? Have you seen Severance?
I like that.
Okay, show is very good. But is it $20 million an episode good?
Oh, like movie. Wasn't the movie we reviewed $10 million last week? Long Legs? It's $10 million.
The whole movie. And they're getting one episode. And it's not like you get like a Game of Thrones episode. Okay. You got dragons. You know what I mean? You got armies and whatnot. That's a lot. I can felt like when I would see those Game of Thrones, I felt the value of those episodes. This, get out of here. So Apple TV continues to like light money on fire. And this is another one. So would I recommend it? I would not recommend it unless you have like Apple TV subscription or Netflix, etc. It is a perfect like straight to video movie or background movie, or as I used to call it, like a TNT or a TBS movie. Just be like, in the background, so to speak. Okay, Jason, we're going to start us off. How many stars would you give this movie out of 5?
Oof. 1.5.
1.5. Okay.
It was a mess. It was a mess. It's a mess.
Jason, that's a fair. I'm going to give it 2 stars. I'm a little bit more positive. 2 out of 5. Would not recommend. 1.5 out of 5. Yikes. The whole time I'm watching it, I'm thinking, who is this for? Like, are there enough, over 40 Caucasian people who love space and 1950s movies that are enough to make like a box office? There's not. It bombed. Jason, guess how much this movie cost to make?
$50 million.
Jason, you would be incorrect by half. This movie, according to Variety, cost more than $100 million to make. Now, Jason, it's been out in the theater.
Where did it spend that money?
Where did it spend that money?
On the stars of the movie.
Okay, we're going to talk about that in a little bit here. None of them are draws. With all due respect to all of their talents, they are not box office draws. You are not going to make your way out to see listen, Scarlett Johansson is certainly a star, but you're not. I don't know. I don't see it. They're not like Tom Cruise is a star. You're seeing a Tom Cruise movie. You may even see a Will Smith movie. His movie slaps. What I'm saying about they're just not draws in there. What was the one she did? Black Widow.
Come on, that was during the pandemic. Fine. Yeah, that's a little harsh.
Okay, it's fine, but this is not like a big draw there. So the movie cost over $100 million. It's been out in theaters. It's well past that. Jason, how much do you think the movie has grossed, not just in the U.S., worldwide, since its release?
I'm going to say they made at least $50 million, made half their money back.
Almost. They've only made $41 million collectively, gross across the world here. Now, I'm not a economist nor a mathematician, but I'm going to say that's going to be pretty hard to recoup your investment there, because if I'm not mistaken, the 100 million is purely the production cost, and then you have to add in the marketing and distribution cost and the film prints, etc. Which is why I think in a previous episode we talked about, was it Batgirl? What was the one they shelved?
It was I think it was Batgirl that they
Batgirl, Batwoman, Batgirl. Okay,
No,
they
it's Batgirl.
shelved it because even though it cost 100 million and they maybe could have squeaked out 40 million, the additional cost to continue to promote it and market it and distribute it, they realized we're going to cut our losses here, which they may have should have done with this one, because it was like if Catch Me If You Can, which is the classic Spielberg movie. Maybe if they gave Spielberg this movie, it might have done a little bit better. It felt like it was sort of a poor man's Spielberg movie, if that makes sense.
I was thinking, oh, she's Frank Abagnale.
Yes.
Come on, it's lazy. Is she John Hamm from Mad Men, or is she Frank Abagnale? It's boring. I do have a question though. Is Apple TV trying to follow the formula of Netflix, where you go, hey, we'll have a few tent pole. We got a big star. Come watch this movie. It's probably not going to be any good, but there's big stars in it. Whereas, to be perfectly honest, since the pandemic, a lot of the movies that I've seen seem like they checked out. I don't even think these movies would have gotten made if not for writer strikes in the pandemic. I think they would have looked at these scripts and went, we'll give you $50,000 to put it on a shelf, but no one's ever going to watch this.
I agree with you there. My instinct tells me that this film may have been around for a while, and they've just tried to there's some of those that just get shopped for a while. There was one that was a Jerry Seinfeld animated one. I want to say Pop-Tarts. Wasn't there one on Netflix he just released? It was the Pop-Tarts movie.
Oh, well, yeah.
Correct. Well, it came and went without much fanfare. But then somebody I saw, actually this movie was made years ago. They had tried to get it into release. They had done screen testings. They had done all this and just couldn't. They knew it was going to work. They just had to find a time to basically dump it. And that's what this kind of felt like, which is sad because it if you're looking at it from just a production design and just some of the the skill of the the artists the unknown artists that go into making films, to recreate that and the costumes, okay, well done on the surface, but then it just wasn't enough to carry it. And as much as Scarlett Johansson is a fine actress, Woody Harrelson is a fine actor, Channing Tatum is a fine dancer.
I love that Step Up movie. I'll just let you know.
Step Up 3D, Jason. I was hoping he was going to step up in this movie, but he didn't.
It's a guilty pleasure.
Okay, fair enough. The man is entertaining. Okay, let's talk about the acting for a second. We're talking about the acting here. Let's start with Mr. Channing Tatum. He's a bit of an enigma to me. I love those small roles he's done. Is it End of the World? What's the movie he played the sort of gimp in as that cameo? What was I can't think of the name of it. Whereas the comedy.
Let's see.
With yeah, look it up, Jason. Let's go to the tape here. I want to say End of the World. Remember where Rihanna slaps him?
Oh, is that a Seth Rogen thing?
Yes, it's Seth Rogen. I can't. It's I'm completely missing it here, but he was fantastic as a cameo in that. I thought in 21 Jump Street he played well.
Yeah,
but as a duo, you know what I mean? If he's in Step Up movies where he's sort of dancing, okay. The what was the stripper movies he did?
Magic Mike. Never saw him.
Magic Mike. Okay, Magic Mike. I saw. Hey, that's fine. But it's as an he just it just doesn't. Do it for me?
Was it fine? He doesn't do it for you.
Not as an actor, no. I want to say, Jason, that movie took place in Tampa or Ybor here. There was some local connection here, and he may be.
Oh local. Yeah. He went to high school here. He finished his last 2 years of high school, a Catholic and Chamberlain, one of those things.
A local boy done good and continued our tradition of producing mediocre actors and athletes that we continue to share with the world out there. I just don't quite get it. And his whole character, too, in the movie, it still made me upset because it's okay, hold on there, production manager. This guy is in a modern. Now he may know a little bit more than anything, but like everyone has to wear their nice suits and their kind of NASA outfits, and old Mr. Tatum gets his whatever he wants to wear. Very diva-esque to me. I don't know. He just annoyed the shit out of me, so it bothers me specifically about him. But let's talk about some better ones here. I'm sorry, Jason. What did you think of the acting in this movie?
I wanted to believe it was a romantic comedy because their first scene together, where he's like, "Oh, boy, you're the prettiest lady I've ever seen," blah blah blah, and then he's just like, I gotta be somewhere," and he runs off, and that was the end of the spark between the two of them. And I know they bring it back in the end, but it was a buddy film. It was two people kind of working together in their hijinks. If they were the same sex, you would have just been like, "Oh, this is a buddy film." But they tried to make it into a romantic comedy when it just didn't seem like he honestly was that interested in her.
Right.
At all. There was more chemistry between like their nerdy guy and the friend than those two, which I was just like, they're ancillary characters. Why am I more interested in if he gets that girl than if Channing Tatum gets this girl? I just think it was just, and I will just mention one thing, that Bo appearance by Colin Jost.
Yes.
For a reason. I get it. Maybe he was on the set one day and someone called in sick, but come on.
I think producers look at Colin Jost specifically, and they're like, well, if Scarlett's going to marry this guy, anybody will have chemistry with her. Anybody will do. You know what I mean? Like, anybody can get up there. He will always be in her films, just FYI. You know, Melissa McCarthy, her husband, who's maybe more talented, I would say, but he's like, will be in every single one of Melissa McCarthy's movies until they are no longer together. So buckle up for Colin Jost cameos. I wonder if they'll get him like a superhero outfit for the next one.
It's gonna be the next Captain America. Yeah. I would say for her, she played the role that she got hired to do.
She did.
It was believable. It was believable because she's a scammer. So just trying to stab him in the back, almost stabbing him in the back. It fit her character, and it was more believable than the emotion that Channing Tatum, or was that his name? What's his name?
Yeah, Channing.
That's his name, right? Yeah, any emotion there, it was just void. Even when he got mad, you went, "Oh, I don't believe it."
I know it was.
I don't believe it. Come on, he's just. I'm not going to say he doesn't have range. I'm sure he has range, but
yes,
I think
he has range. Mid to lower mid.
Yeah, so someone made a mistake and they're like, "Hey, why has he got his shirt on the whole movie?" Okay, we made a mistake.
Listen, the dude is an entertainer. Like those step up movies and stuff, like the man can dance. And if you're like, you got a sort of like pretty boy face and you can dance, you're an entertainer. Go entertain, my man. But like those movies work. The Step Up franchises work. Even the Magic Mike work because he's getting to kind of has that range. When you're just put into a romantic comedy and just expected to act with your shirt on and without the sort of like dance moves, you get exposed, man. You were exposed, my man. Like Scarlett Johansson is a professional actress. I first saw her in Ghost World years ago, which even as she was like young girl in that movie, but she just like held her own and like, was a professional. And you think you could just even tell at that young age, like this is a pro. And then she's done, obviously risen to like more of a worldwide name here, but she is a pro. And Woody Harrelson, is another pro. Like you can just expect him to do good work. And then when you put them together with somebody, it's like throwing in, just an actor that a producer wants or someone else wants to kind of like make a star. And then it just doesn't, the ingredients don't quite work. Like you're tasting the cake and it's like, why the hell did you put in cumin in here?
I actually got a question about that. I'm curious your thought. Scrolling through YouTube shorts, come across some of these things where there's this one guy and he's like, this actor was cast originally and then passed, and you kind of see it where it's, oh, this was meant for someone else. I feel like this was a movie meant for someone else, and it took so long or it didn't test well, and they went, that guy, Magic Mike, And then someone again forgot to say, hey, he's supposed to take his shirt off the whole movie.
Yeah.
Because no.
You know what, Jason? That is a good point. If this was actually cast with somebody, I can't even think who else at the moment, but somebody else, it may have like held its own a little bit more. We talk about on this show, it's like when a movie is trying to be something and it reaches that, and like not trying to be too much or too, like when it just achieves its goals, it usually kind of works. And I think if with maybe a casting change, it might have succeeded a little bit more. The one thing I also thought it was missing, I had an old film professor, Dr. Mary Johnson, rest in peace. He said something that will always stay with me. She's like, every successful movie needs one thing. Jason, what do you think it's a one-word answer. What do you think the one thing that successful movies, or really successful stories, have in common?
Entertainment.
Now, entertainment's a good one. And maybe there's no 100% answer. This is Dr. Barry Johnson's opinion here, but she was a doctor. The word is conflict. You need to have conflict, either internal conflict and conflict with an opposing party, conflict, just that word. If you don't have the more conflict, the more drama, the more tension, and also the more entertainment.
But there was conflict.
Okay. Then let's explore the conflict.
He failed at his mission.
Yes.
And people died.
Yes.
And his confidence was shook.
Yes.
And when he saw a black cat, he's like, oh no, get the black cat out of here. Now, I'm going to be 1,000% honest. I didn't really understand the black cat thing. She had to explain it. She's like, it's bad luck. And because of what happened before. And I went, oh, well, that failed because I didn't even get it. Yes. But that was his internal conflict. He was unable to love because he had failed at his job and people died. And that was the conflict.
Was that enough?
No.
That's
100%. It was not enough.
It's not enough. It's not enough.
There was some conflict in there. There's 2 points to the movie that I thought could have made it more interesting. The Vietnam War is playing in the backdrop constantly. It's in the backdrop, and it's kind of just name checked a little bit. Oh, we're gonna have to compete against the Vietnam War, and I'm going, there's a story there that most people don't know. And to be perfectly honest, I really never thought about it running concurrent with the space program, where people are kind of going, you're worried about sending people to the moon when people are getting killed by the tens of thousands. Okay, which one's more important? And then there was that second part where they were talking about they had to go win over the religious guy.
Yes.
And I went, wait, there was religious objection to NASA? These are parts where I think that would have been the conflict.
They could have you just had to scratch a little there. Just had to scratch and would have exposed all that conflict. That would have been smart, Jason.
But they wanted it to be a rom-com that failed.
Just so, I hate to say it, but it was just I don't know, over commercialized or too safe or something. Like, I don't care. I mean, if I'm being honest, I usually think of people that have like deep conspiracy theories, the flat earthers and things. I'm like, oh, all right. I've had some smart people in my life where they don't buy into those, but they said, the moon landing, I'm not quite sure. And I paused for a second because I'm like, we're disputing this. And I know that's maybe the joke of it that they're trying to do in the Womcom, that's like a thing about the fake moon landing. But I'm like, what are we talking about? Like, that's not enough.
But it's not that's the thing. It's not a joke, because there was a family member, not my younger brother, maybe another brother of mine. We were talking about the moon landing, and he's like, I was talking to this guy, and he said it wasn't real. And I was like, wait, what? He's like, yeah, this guy was telling me, and he gave me all these facts. And I was like, let's sit down. I was like, sit down. We're going to watch Mythbusters. And we watched an hour-long episode on why the moon landing wasn't faked. And by the end, he went, "Hey, you're right. Okay. That's it. You're right. Yeah, these 2 pseudoscientists, I don't know if they're scientists or not, explained it to me. And I think it's there was just this funny part where I thought about Marjorie Taylor Greene and the Jewish space lasers because like wait, so the people that don't believe we went to the moon believe the Jews put space lasers the moon. What? Well, that doesn't really work for me, QAnon. Like you got to pick one or the other. Like you can't. The Jews went to space. Oh, nobody went to space.
Yeah.
On which one is it?
I know.
You know, on. You know,
well, the theory of Occam's razor of usually the simplest scientific answer, usually the simplest answer is usually the right answer, is such the case in this. It's like the people saw the rocket leave into outer space. We brought back tangible evidence of moon rocks, which contain composites of things that are not of this planet. We have first-person accounts from, astronauts
Actors.
and ex-military that are. The amazing thing to me is at least your one brother, who shall remain nameless, even though I know who it is because I know your brothers, and if you just deduced it, if at least your brother is smart enough to accept new facts and then have an open enough mind to be like, all right, yeah, that's right. What bothers me is people will especially like the flat earth thing, they'll send them on experiments and they will literally go out into the field to do an experiment which will disprove their theory, and then afterwards are so tied to their opinion.
They're committed.
They're so committed that they refuse to let reality kind of affect their mind, which is a scary thing to think about here. But such is the case with a lot of people who are still telling me that the Earth is flat and then JFK is actually probably did the moon landing himself. It's still here. Okay, let's move on to the director we were talking about for a second, and let's talk about the direction of this filming. The director of Fly Me to the Moon is a man named Greg Berlanti. Greg's previous film was something called Love, Simon, and then a few other kind of smaller films, and then produced a bunch of things. So I think this is his first sort of bigger budget film. As we said, $100 million. Guys, you don't go from... I think he did produce some of those CW action shows, so maybe he's used to a little bit better production design. So I'll give him some credit. But you don't go from a small indie movie Love, Simon to a $100 million bigger set like that. It just seemed like too big of a step up as far as handling that. And then again, it just felt sort of soulless. I mean, just sort of paint by numbers, commercialized, just sort of good to look at, but not much else. Kind of vapid in its execution there. Jason, what did you think about the direction of said film?
Actually, I didn't like the flow of the film. Thought that they did the big reveal of his conflict, and they did the big threaten her with "we're gonna out you." All of these things came 2 hours into the movie. It took too long. It took way too long. I almost question if everyone is getting paid per minute, like they're lawyers or something, where they go, hey, the longer we can make this go, the better. Right. Which, in theory, if this movie is released in the theater, you actually want more shows. You don't want less shows. So I don't know why you make it 2.5 hours. I think the sets looked great. I think that I really felt this felt like the 60s. All the things that I don't know a lot about space because I don't care about space, but of all the things I know about how they got the astronauts board, they gave them watches, they gave them the dollar Corvettes was a real thing. They're like, hey, you can use these Corvettes for $1. Yeah. All of those little details were pretty interesting, but it can't hide the fact that you didn't know if this was a romantic comedy.
I didn't know.
Or a buddy film. And I don't like that direction. I don't like, because you should have been able to establish early with a scene where he likes her, and then you're going to tell me he's not even going to make a move because dead astronauts? Come on.
Yeah.
Channing Tatum don't care about no dead astronauts. I'm just saying. He doesn't. It's not real.
Jason, you said it right. I mean, it just, it It tried to have an identity of like cool. Apple TV, we just watched a series they did called Palm Beach, which was, well, I mean, again, for like a period piece, also set kind of in a similar era. Listen, obviously in that Apple world, they've got great production design artists. They've got great costume designers. Well done. Like the people who worked on Mad Men just keep getting kind of replaced into new shows and movies. Keep them working. But you're going to have to, like, just because you make a great set or a great world for them to inhabit is not enough. It's not enough. You've got to put it on the page. Like, it just, Jason, we're going to come back and review a documentary. It's one of my favorite documentaries, The Kid Stays in the Picture, about the producer of Godfather and legendary producer, Robert Evans. And he kept going on about that. And he's like, when he's talking about Godfather, he's like, it's got to start on the page. If the script doesn't work, nothing will work. And I think that's the saddest part about the last few movies and things we'll keep reviewing is like, you can't buy your way into a good movie. No amount of production design or even acting can buy your way into a good story. And if you don't have the story, just stop and fix your story and then continue to go. And it's not like I'm sure you've heard scripts where like an Iron Man or things that have worked. They're sort of figuring out that part. Well, they did, but they're also figuring out with like a Jon Favreau and Robert Downey Jr. and great writers that are kind of helping write this. Greg, you're out of your league, my man. You did not have enough. It was like a team of writers. You should have had some more. Finish that, really polish that up and scratch some of that surface. But before you got started here, like if you would have exposed a little of that parallel, like you said, to Vietnam, and talked about that sort of dichotomy a little bit, maybe that's not as much of a comedy there, but at least you could have done something that like meant something or something resonated here. Or if not, man, chop it up and put it on TV, my man. Chop it up and put it into a limited edition or limited series here. That may have been more successful.
Okay, well, let me ask you a question. You like space. I think I heard a rumor that you went to space camp once.
I am a space camp alumni.
I actually went when I lived in Alabama. We went to the Huntsville Space Center.
That's the bigger one. Yeah.
And I saved up a bunch of money, and I think I bought $30 worth of space ice cream. It was amazing. Really, now that I think about it, I should have literally invested that in the market, and I would have spent the money by now, so I wouldn't have anything.
Jason, I know.
But you're a space fan. We don't care about space.
Oh, okay.
I do not care about space. I'll watch the movies, but I have no interest in it. I get it. It seems like it's 2024 and we let Boeing send 2 astronauts to the space station and then went, "Oh, yeah, we don't trust their product, so you got to hang out there for like till next year." Who cares? Why are we still doing this? But as a lover of space, take out the bad acting, take out the plot. Are you interested in the movie? Does this movie appeal to you on the base level of, hey, I like space stuff. Yeah. I like space. I like the space program. It's a throwback because it's pretty much dead now. It actually does appeal to you. I feel like you might be the target audience and white men that are 30 years older than you. People that were like, hey, when I was a kid, I went and watched the space shuttle take off. They let me out of school. I watched it on TV. I think it works for that. But I don't think it's a big enough audience. I question why this movie came out 2024, right?
Correct.
Is that correct? The moon landing was 1969. That sounds like a 55-year. I don't know. I'm not good at math. That sounds like a 55-year anniversary that you could have tied in with the movie. It's about space. Sell the space. Even if you want to sell the conspiracy theory about space. And I just think that with that director and the marketing, I don't think they knew who to appeal this to because
exactly right. Jason, I kept saying in the movie, who is this movie for? Like, who is this for? Is it the older people? Is it trying to appeal? It just was a mess. It was like the lack of identity to it. It just fell so flat. I'm looking at screen, Jason, of other like movies set in space, and I'm going to read you some of the last ones I see here. Ad Astra, Brad Pitt, fail. High Life, fail. The
Wait,
Martian.
who's in that one? I don't remember that one.
Gosh, who's the new Batman? Trying to blank on his name from
Robert Pattinson.
Robert Pattinson, excuse me. He is a fantastic actor. Don't get me wrong, he's a fantastic actor, but no. The Martian was very good, I thought. Gravity was excellent because Gravity. I'm also looking at Life with Ryan Reynolds, ISS, Interstellar. Now, the movies of that list, Jason, like Interstellar works because it's Christopher Nolan.
Yeah.
Gravity works because it's got now Sandra Bullock and George Clooney are stars, and Alfonso Cuarón, I always mispronounce his name. He is a fantastic, like, international legendary director. Martian, great director and great, and I'd even say Matt Damon is a star. What stretch there, but my point is, great scripts, great directors, and they happen to be set in space. If you're trying to make space the thing, it's not enough. Like, not enough people care.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I just kind of thought maybe they went. Have you ever seen a shuttle take off? Not but just like watched it. Like, oh look, there's the shuttle in the sky because we live in Florida.
Yeah, Jason.
So
I was alive in the '80s, and I saw the Challenger take off.
The blow up one.
Were you not here? Were you not here in Florida when that happened?
Funny enough, I actually have a funny story about that. So we lived in Alabama. The year before the Challenger blew up, we came to West Palm, and we saw it take off the year before. And then a year later, explodes. Very, very sad. Very sad. But yeah, I saw that, and then I can't remember the one that exploded in like the 2000s, but I remember I was at like the convention center during Gasparilla, and I was like, why are we still doing this?
You know, Jason, fair. That's actually a good point. Why?
Because Russia is? Because China is?
But for what? Like, I have heard, now forgive the sort of science fiction of this. I have heard, now I definitely get like satellites, like the exploration and like, you know, even like a Starlink to be able to provide Wi-Fi to the world at a somewhat more affordable pace. Okay, I get that. Going to the moon is purely an ego stroke at this point. Like, what else is there to explore? My point is, I've seen things where if we could figure out the tech to, like, some of these passing asteroids contain enough, like, precious metals that we use for things, if we could somehow get to them and farm them a little bit, then there could be, like, a resource sort of value of that. But going to the moon, for what? And then it's just like, what we're going to go... Like it's just like an ego thing by people are going to replace our American flag with like their flag, and then they're going to broadcast it, and then we got to kind of, you know, Sputnik race ourselves back up there to get it. And, you know, the other part is like, I also see the commercial side. Like, I'm sure when you saw Elon's SpaceX and saw like the rockets like self-land, okay, we've made some advancements here. We're using rockets to make that efficient. Okay. But yeah, the moon, stop it. Just stop it. We got other things to do. And it's not going to restore pride in America to like get to the moon, because half the country is going to feel like it's faked anyway, even if we get back up there.
I heard a funny story once when George Bush Jr., when he was the president, he's like, we should go to the moon. Let's go to the moon. And he gave NASA a directive, and NASA went, hey, about that, all of the equipment we used, we wrote on paper to they scrapped almost all of the equipment to go to the moon. So he's like, we got to start from we got to basically start from scratch. And so much time has passed. Those brilliant people that got us to space, they don't work for NASA anymore. So they're like, oh, we got to start all over again. It is a sense of pride, which is weird because we basically dismantled the shuttle program. We dismantled NASA. I don't know why we care, but China just landed on the dark side of the moon again. Don't personally know why anybody cares. If China wants to mine it for green cheese, do it. I don't.
Are we going to send tourists up there? Are we doing like space? Like, what is on the moon? There's nothing on the moon. It's like a dead rock. We don't need the moon.
would you fly to the moon if you were a billionaire and not afraid of, I don't know, submersibles or
gonna say.
fancy yachts? You're not afraid of those kind of things. Would you be a space tourist and go to the moon?
You know what? Maybe if like on the 10th, after many people have gone and tried it, but I'm also not a fan of like skydiving or bungee jumping or some other like risk things. Like I know they did it. What's the Virgin? It's like Virgin Atlantic or Virgin Galactic, where they would take tourists and just it was like a not the it's sort of like a something in
like
the
stratosphere or something like that.
It wasn't fully outside in space, but it was enough to. I don't know, Jason. I don't know. Maybe not enough for me to do that here. I'd much rather like have things on Earth. Now, if we can figure out how to like, I've seen these things where it's like, well, 71 trillion light years away, we're seeing traces of an inhabitable planet. Okay, let's figure out that. Can we bend time together in a sort of like Dune world where we can like get closer and speed up time travel and do some theoretical things that Einstein envisioned? Okay, let's pursue that. But going back to the moon, waste of resources. We got other things going on. So I found myself I'm in the camp back in the 60s of like, hey, we got a war going on. Do we really need this right now?
Well, yes.
And also, I've seen enough movies, Jason, where I want to say I think Jack Black's mom was involved at NASA, and she might have like been part of it. Jason, let's go look it up.
I didn't. I got a question. I don't know if you know the answer. Does Israel have a space program? Very curious.
Let's look it up.
As they're in like eternal war, when do you have time to like launch astronauts into space?
The Israel Space Agency is a governmental body, a part of Israel's Ministry of Science and Technology. So they do. Jack Black's mother worked. She did. Look at this. Judith Love Cohen helped create the abort guidance system, which rescued the Apollo 13 astronauts. So Jack Black's mom was involved in that. But I was going to say, that's a
Claptrap's mom. Awesome Claptrap.
Yes.
Best movie ever.
Best movie ever. Jason, what is the movie with Kevin Costner and the recent NASA one where it's like figures? The women
Hidden
who
Figures.
Hidden Figures, okay. Is it Hidden Figures?
Yeah, the black women?
Okay, they wouldn't even let him go to the bathroom in the same building, Jason. That scene keeps coming into my feed, and then just every time I see that, where she's like, I can't relieve myself, in the bathroom. That's like a fantastic scene. He helps kind of beat down the doors.
I mean, it's America, and a little fun fact about Tampa that I did not know. I was watching PBS, and they were talking about the week before Kennedy got killed in Texas, R.I.P. Kennedy.
Yes,
he was in Tampa. And that's why Kennedy is named Kennedy. But
that's right.
The interesting part was it was the first time that crowds were integrated because
in Tampa
they had which I forget we live in the South. They had literally in the background of some of the shots were whites only, coloreds only.
Wow.
And I went, wow, that's crazy because it just doesn't feel like that long ago. I know it's long ago for some people, never, but it just was just kind of like an odd thing where it's, people are ushering in space and black and white people still can't get married. So it seems like our priorities sometimes are a little screwed up, which at the same time, how much money is Israel spending on their space program when they're in a war? Like you're in a war. Can't we divert that money back over to where it's needed? Whether you feel the war is right or not is irrelevant. But they're in a war. And if tomorrow I heard Palestine, they're launching a rocket into space, I would go, you're not taking this serious.
I'm gonna guess they have diverted some funds in there. If not mistaken, America has created the remember the Space Force?
Yes.
I'm not sure where we are with the Space Force. I saw some uniforms where I thought it was like, is this a movie like a Christopher Guest movie or something? We're like stuck in our own like comedy here. I think they've since sort of slow played the Space Force based on public outcry of like, what?
Well, the thing is, we do a lot of space stuff. So it's very generic. But say, for instance, GPS. The Air Force handles GPS. All GPS in the world is basically free use by the United States government. So tomorrow, if some country's like, we're going to attack you, we can shut their GPS off. What happens then? Nothing, because you can't do anything with that. There are people out there with maps navigating by the stars. Yeah, I don't think so. But I think that's part of what Space Force is taking over, a lot of those kind of things from the other agencies. But they have bad PR. They're like Democrats. They have terrible PR. So you don't even know what they do.
Okay, Jason, we're coming up on 45 minutes. We're going to wrap this up. All right. So neither of us recommend this movie. Jason gives it a 1.5 out of 5. I give it a 2 out of 5. We got to figure out a better rating system. I want to go to something where we I want to do a reverse, Jason, where it's like, instead of like how much we recommend it, how much we like disrecommend it. So if it's like we only give it
we're going to be negative.
Like, it's almost like a like how many do you give it? And if it's like little, if it's 0 that's like, okay, good movie. But if it's like 5 then you know to avoid it. We'll work that out later at another point here. Okay, Fly Me to the Moon, a directionless, soulless, $100 million semi-disaster of a movie that will never remake its money and will go down to the annals of history as another mediocre entry into film history. With one
before we go,
yes,
recommend a space movie. Just one or two lines. Yeah. Why that movie?
Okay, Jason, I'm going to recommend. I mean, I do love Interstellar, but I'm going to recommend one movie. Let me just look it up when it was made here. And this was a classic. Okay, the movie is called Space Camp. This movie was made Its movie was made in 1986. It inspired said film reviewer to go to Space Camp because I wanted a Big Mac attack in space here. It had Joaquin Phoenix in it, Kate Capshaw in it. That's it. Not too many. That's a people. No, the one actor, he was in a bunch of 80s movies, which I can't think of his name at the moment. Leah Thompson was in it. She's a good actress. It's the guy. Goodness gracious. Why are they not showing her? Hold on. It's this one actor. I'm going to look up his name before.
He's down deep on the list.
He must be. And this is like a guy who was in a bunch of. Is it Judge Reinhold? Hold on a second.
Hey, Judge Reinhold's back.
It's not Judge Reinhold. Tate Donovan. Sorry. Mr. Tate Donovan, who is a sort of like, seems like they're cousins with, he's related to him. But, okay, Space Camp was my recommendation movie. What was yours? What's a space movie you'd like?
A space movie I like?
Yes.
I rewatched Alien recently.
Alien. We just watched that last night. I just showed my son last night. Yeah, that's a good one.
Pretty good. I really enjoyed it. Though it's just watched Alien Romulus a couple weeks ago.
Oh.
And so I went back and watched Alien and I went, this still holds up. Like it was enough of an homage Romulus was to this that I went, no, this really does kind of continue the story. Things that I forgot were in Alien Romulus. And I just went, wow, it still looks good for a movie that was as old as I am. I think it's like 78, 79, something like that. So yeah, I would highly recommend that. So before you go watch new bad movies, there's a bunch of old movies you haven't seen. And we're going to keep recommending movies for you to watch.
All right. Well, thank you for sticking in. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, like us on other social networks, and we will be back next week with a new review, TBD. Thanks for watching. See ya.
Good night, everybody.